Have you ever noticed how some people try so hard to get under your skin, just to see if they still have control over you? They poke, they insult, they gossip, and what they want more than anything is your reaction. That moment when you snap, defend yourself, raise your voice, or fall apart. That's the victory they're chasing, because when you react emotionally, you hand them the power they never deserved in the first place. But what if you did the exact opposite? What if, instead of reacting, you chose silence, calm, stillness, absolute emotional control? There's a reason silence is feared by those who try to provoke you. It shows strength. It reveals you're no longer playing their game. And that terrifies them. People who thrive on conflict don't know how to handle someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't respond, and doesn't fall for their bait. Your silence becomes a mirror. It forces them to face themselves, and they don't like what they see. Every time you refuse to react, you're saying something much louder than words ever could. You don't matter enough to disturb my peace. And that cuts deeper than any insult. You're not ignoring them because you're weak. You're doing it because you've grown. Because your energy is too valuable to waste on people who live off your pain. You're learning to control your state, to own your emotions, and to lead your mind. And when you do that, you shift the power dynamic completely. They lose control, you rise above. This isn't about bottling things up or pretending to be fine. It's about mastering your response so no one else can dictate your mood or steal your focus. The truth is, silence is not emptiness. It's presence. It's discipline. It's choosing your battles with precision. And when you become the person who doesn't react, who stays grounded even when chaos surrounds you, you become dangerous in the best way possible, because you can no longer be manipulated. You can no longer be pushed into corners you've outgrown. You don't destroy your enemy by shouting louder. You destroy them by showing that their words, their opinions, and their need for attention have no place in your world. If you've ever felt trapped by someone's negativity, if you've ever wasted nights replaying arguments in your head, then now is your moment to reclaim your peace. Choose silence, choose strength, and let your calm become the storm that breaks their grip. Because when you stop reacting, you start winning. When you stop explaining yourself, you start evolving. And when you stop giving them what they want, they start fading into the background where they belong. Stay with this message. Real internal transformation. You stop trying to prove yourself to people who never saw your worth in the first place. And instead, you become obsessed with one thing, outgrowing them. Because nothing destroys your enemy more completely than becoming someone they can no longer reach, touch, or understand. When you rise, you make them irrelevant. They try to pull you down, but their hands can't reach the level you're building yourself to. You focus on your mindset, your habits, your goals. You level up, not to get back at them, but because they were the limit and you refuse to live limited anymore. Every time you improve, every time you evolve, you leave behind a version of yourself that used to be stuck in their shadow. They tried to define you, but you're rewriting your own definition. People who try to keep you small can't stand the version of you that no longer fits in their narrative, and nothing cuts deeper than being forgotten by someone they tried to break. You become a ghost in their story, not because you disappeared, but because you transformed into someone they never thought you could become. Your silence made them wonder. Your growth makes them feel exposed. Because while they were still focused on hurting you, you outgrew the battlefield completely. You start investing in yourself. You learn. You train. You discipline your mind, body, and soul. You become harder to provoke, harder to understand, harder to manipulate. That's how you win without fighting, because the real enemy was never just them. It was your past self. The one who needed validation, who got triggered, who stayed stuck. Now you rise. Now you choose clarity over chaos, progress over pettiness, and purpose over every step forward you take, every boundary you set, every moment you choose growth over revenge. It burns them more than any confrontation ever could. Because now, they can't even reach you. You've moved on, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and what can they do to someone who's no longer emotionally accessible? Nothing. That's the real victory. Not in what you say, not in how loud you get, but in the calm, steady rise of someone who's building a life so powerful, their enemies become background noise. Your energy is not meant to be wasted on battles beneath you. Your purpose is too high to pause for the insecure. Keep growing, keep building, keep rising, because the higher you go, the more powerless they become. And when your life becomes a reflection of discipline, purpose, and quiet strength, they'll realize the war they started was with someone who no longer exists. You've outgrown the fight. You've outgrown them. And they won't survive the silence of your success. They wanted to see you fall apart. Instead, you built something they can't touch. Results. While they were spreading rumors, you were planting seeds. While they laughed, you worked in silence. And now, the noise you make is not with your voice, but with your growth, your success, your transformation. Nothing silences an enemy faster than undeniable progress. They can argue with your words, they can twist your past, but they can't erase what you've built with your own hands. They can't fight the facts. And the fact is, you've become everything they said you couldn't. They were hoping you'd fight them back, sink to their level, get dirty in the same mud they've been stuck in for years. But you didn't. That's when, within you, you couldn't fight back because you built it yourself. You did it for you chose discipline. You chose resilience. And now, your wins speak louder than any comeback ever could. You don't need to defend yourself when your life already proves them wrong. You don't need to clap back when your actions roar louder than any insult ever could. They tried to make you doubt yourself, but every goal you hit, every step you take forward, is a message carved in stone. You were wrong about me. That message doesn't need to be spoken. It's written in the way you carry yourself, in the confidence you've earned through pain, in the strength you built in silence. They underestimated you because they only saw who you were, but they never saw who you were becoming. That was their biggest mistake. Now, you show them, without saying a word. Because results destroy doubt. Discipline destroys drama. Success destroys noise. And you've chosen all three. Let your progress be your response. Let your peace be your revenge. The more you succeed, the less they matter. That's the secret. Not proving them wrong with rage, but with focus, with patience, with consistency, because you know that slow growth is still growth. Quiet wins are still wins, and small steps forward are still steps. You've stopped looking back. You've stopped explaining. You've stopped asking for recognition, and that's what makes you powerful. You're no longer chasing validation, you're creating results. And that's what they'll never understand. People who spend their time trying to tear others down will always be confused by someone who simply builds. Let them be confused, let them talk, let them obsess over what you're doing while you move in silence. Because your life will become the answer to every question they ever had about you. The truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to last. And when the dust settles, they'll be left with nothing but their own bitterness. You'll be standing on a foundation you created from focus, not revenge. Keep going. Keep growing. Keep letting your results speak for you. Because the ones who laughed at you, the ones who doubted you, they'll have no choice but to watch in silence. You don't need to fight them. You've already won. They want competition. They crave the fight. Because that's the only place they feel in control. When you engage, when you respond, when you fall into their trap. But what happens when you stop showing up to compete? What happens when you simply stop caring? You starve their ego. You take away their fuel. You remove the spotlight they so desperately feed on. And suddenly, their power collapses. Not because you defeated them, but because you refuse to play. There is no greater defeat for someone obsessed with being above you than realizing you don't see them as a rival. They want you to fight because fighting keeps you close. But when you become indifferent, you become unreachable. You don't destroy your enemy by trying to beat them. You destroy them by becoming free from needing to. You let go of their game, their level, their need for validation. And that silence becomes their torment. Because now, they don't matter. And that truth is louder than any argument could ever be. Your detachment is your weapon. Not coldness, not hatred, just clarity. You've seen their patterns, you've learned their tactics, and now you simply walk away. Not because you're weak, but because they're no longer worthy of your time. Let them compete with the ghost of who you used to be. You've evolved beyond their reach. And every time they try to pull you back, you stay still. Every time they throw a jab, you remain unshaken. That's how you break them. By staying rooted in your peace. The more you choose not to compete, the more power you regain. Your enemy thrives on comparison. They want you to feel less, to prove more, to seek their approval. But the moment you stop measuring yourself by their standards, the illusion shatters. Their opinion becomes weightless. Their approval becomes irrelevant. And their presence fades into background noise. Because now, you define your worth. You lead your own path. You answer only to your purpose. When you stop showing up to battles you never agreed to fight, you reclaim your freedom. You stop explaining, defending, and chasing. And in that freedom, you become untouchable. They will try everything to pull you back, mock you, belittle you, pretend they've won. But their voice loses all strength the moment you stop responding. You've chosen something greater than revenge. You've chosen evolution. You owe no one a fight. You owe no one your energy. You're not here to prove anything. You're here to build, to rise, to heal, to live. Let them drown in their need to win. Let them crumble without your attention. Because the moment you step out of their arena, the game ends. Not with a bang, but with silence. And in that silence, you grow louder than ever. That's how you win. By choosing peace over pride, purpose over pettiness, and growth over games. Walk away and let your absence speak the loudest. There is a kind of power that doesn't shout. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't seek approval or applause. It just exists. Calm, centered, unbothered. And that power lives inside you the moment you take control of your emotions, because control is the ultimate strength. When they try to trigger you and fail, when they insult you and you don't flinch, when they spread lies and you move forward anyway, they begin to understand they've lost all access to your peace. That's what destroys them. Realizing they have no power left, not even through chaos. They were counting on your reaction. They were hoping for your breakdown. They needed your weakness to feel strong. But when you master your emotions, you take away the one thing they depended on, your vulnerability to their games. You no longer get pulled into arguments that drain you. You no longer chase closure from people who benefit from your confusion. You no longer allow their noise to disturb your focus. Instead, you remain unmoved, steady, like a mountain, because you know that not everything deserves your energy. Emotional self-retreat is not about suppressing how you feel, it's about protecting your mind from being hijacked. It's about knowing when to speak and when to walk away. When to hold your ground and when to let silence speak louder than any response. You don't lose anything by refusing to fight meaningless battles. You gain clarity, direction, and power. And when your enemy realizes they can no longer reach the buttons they used to push, they begin to panic. Because they see a version of you they can't manipulate anymore. A version they never expected, a version they never wanted you to become. Let them scream. Let them create drama. Let them twist the story. You don't need to defend yourself when your reality is rooted in truth. The ones who really matter can feel your energy. They can see your growth. And the ones who continue to misunderstand you were never meant to walk beside you anyway. Let them stay confused. Your evolution is not a group discussion. It's personal, it's sacred, and no one gets to vote on who you become. As your emotional discipline deepens, your enemy begins to exhaust themselves. They argue with the air. They provoke nothing but silence. They throw punches at shadows, and the louder they get, the clearer it becomes you've already won. Not by overpowering them, but by overpowering your own reactions. That's the real victory. You turned inward and did the work they never thought you could. You chose peace when anger was easy. You chose patience when retaliation was tempting. And that choice, over and over again, is what makes you untouchable. Master yourself, and you master the game. Rule your emotions, and no one else can rule you. They may still try, but it won't matter. Because now you respond only to purpose, not provocation. And that makes you unstoppable. The enemy you destroy without lifting a finger is the one who expected you to stay broken. They needed you to stay wounded because your pain made them feel superior. Your silence made them feel victorious. Your struggle was their entertainment. But now you heal, you rise, and your healing strips them of the power they thought they held, because there is nothing more terrifying to someone who feeds off your weakness than seeing you get back up with more strength, more clarity, and more peace than ever before. Healing is not weakness, it is war. It is the quiet fight to rebuild yourself, piece by piece, while the world expects you to collapse. It's the decision to stop bleeding for people who never intended to stop hurting you. It's the choice to walk away, not in defeat, but in full awareness that staying would have destroyed your soul. And the more you heal, the more they fade. The more you reclaim your voice, your worth, your vision, the more irrelevant they become, because they never prepared for your recovery. They only planned for your destruction. You take back your mind, you take back your heart. You take back the time you gave to people who never deserved a second of it. And with every boundary you set, you rebuild your self-respect. You become immune to their guilt, untouched by their opinions, untangled from their chaos. They lose access to your emotions, and with it, they lose control. Healing doesn't make you soft, it makes you precise, focused, clear. It sharpens your instincts and strengthens your resolve. And soon, you don't even recognize the version of you who used to tolerate what now disgusts you. They will notice your glow before they understand your silence. They'll feel your distance before they ever grasp your reasons. But none of that matters, because your life is no longer about proving anything to people who failed to value you. It's about returning to yourself, fully, unapologetically. And when your healing becomes visible, when your peace radiates louder than your past pain, they'll realize the fight is over, not because you lost, but because you left. You left the pain. You left the cycle. You left the space they once occupied in your mind. Your scars are not shame, they are proof. Proof that you survived what tried to break you. Proof that you didn't just endure, you transformed. And every step forward, every moment of self-love, every breath of peace, it all becomes a quiet but powerful declaration. You didn't win. You may have wounded me, but you didn't end me. And now, the healed version of me is far more dangerous than the broken one you tried to control. Keep healing, keep rising. Let them talk, let them wonder. Let them cling to the past while you build a future they'll never touch. That's how you destroy your enemy, by becoming whole in a world that tried to keep you shattered. The greatest revenge is becoming the person they said you'd never be. Not louder, not angrier, just better. Because nothing disrupts the plans of those who plotted against you like watching you succeed without their help, without their approval, without their presence. They expected you to stay small. They built their egos on your silence, on your hesitation, on your fears. But you've stepped into a version of yourself that no longer flinches, no longer waits, no longer asks for permission. You've outgrown the limits they once tried to place on your name. You don't destroy your enemy by sinking to their level. You destroy them by standing so tall they can't even reach to pull you down. You become everything they're not. Disciplined, calm, clear, unshakable. You're not chasing power over others. You're claiming power over yourself. That's why it hits differently. That's why it stings. Because they wanted you reactive, emotional, insecure. But you chose growth. You chose to level up in silence and let the results show up loud. And now, every step forward you take is a reminder that they never had the final say. Your enemy doesn't fear confrontation. They fear your elevation. They fear your ability to keep going without needing to be seen. They fear your strength to rise when no one clapped for you. They fear the version of you that doesn't break under pressure anymore. Because that version doesn't give them access, doesn't give them energy, doesn't give them space. That version walks into every room with presence and leaves with respect. And no amount of gossip can change that. Let them cling to your past. Let them bring up old versions of you to feel relevant. That version is gone, replaced, evolved. You no longer live in the memories where they had power. You live in the present, where you've reclaimed it all. And the more they speak, the more they reveal how stuck they are. Because the healed don't chase conflict. The healed don't seek revenge. The healed don't need to prove they've won. They just live. And that life, lived with peace and purpose, is what they'll never be able to match. They try to keep you broken, but you became unbreakable. They tried to define you, but you rewrote the definition. They tried to limit you, but you shattered every ceiling. And now, their relevance fades with every quiet win you stack. Your focus becomes your fire. Your purpose becomes your shield. You're no longer reactive, you're intentional. And that energy is untouchable. It's the kind of power they can't mimic, can't fake, can't destroy. Keep building. Keep evolving. Let them sit in the shadows while your light grows too bright to ignore. Because you didn't need to fight them to win, you just needed to rise beyond them. And you did. And now they're left behind, still trying to make noise in a life you've already outgrown. They never expected you to stop explaining. They never thought you would grow so much that you'd no longer feel the need to defend yourself. But that silence they used to mistake for weakness has become your greatest form of strength. Because when you no longer explain who you are, what you're doing, or why you've chosen to rise, you shift from being controlled to being completely free. They lose access not just to your emotions, but to your mind, your peace, your presence, and that is where their control dies. You are not here to convince anyone of your worth. You are not here to justify your healing, your boundaries, your growth. That's how they kept you tied to them. Through the endless cycle of having to prove, explain, and apologize for things you never needed to explain in the first place. But not anymore. You've broken the loop. And now your silence echoes louder than any argument ever could, because silence backed by clarity is power. It tells the world, I don't owe you my energy, my words, or my attention. I've outgrown the need to be understood by those who chose to misunderstand me. They'll try to provoke you again. They'll bait you with twisted narratives and passive aggression. Not because they care about truth, but because they care about control. But when you remain still, when you don't respond, when you move forward without ever turning back, they begin to realize their influence is gone. You've become a mirror to them. And what they see now is not someone to manipulate, but someone they no longer recognize, someone untouchable. Your enemy wants your reaction. They feed off your response. They need to know they still matter. But when you become fully focused on your purpose, their noise becomes irrelevant. You no longer look back. You no longer pause to explain what you're doing, you simply do it. And that quiet confidence is what dismantles everything they once believed about you. Because the more you grow, the more their version of you becomes outdated. The more you evolve, the more they realize they never really knew you, only the version they built in their mind to feel superior. Let your silence be your strategy. Let your results speak what words never could. Let your focus scream what your voice no longer has to. You owe no one your truth when they've already chosen their lie. You owe no one a seat at your table when they only came to flip it. Keep moving in silence with purpose and intention. Every step you take in peace, every move you make in stillness, every level you rise without a word, that's how you win. You don't destroy your enemy with noise. You destroy them with absence, with elevation, and with the unshakable discipline of not needing to be seen, heard, or explained. You just keep going. And the silence becomes deafening. When you stop seeking revenge, you start building legacy. Because true power isn't found in proving people wrong. It's found in becoming so unshakably focused on your purpose that their doubt becomes irrelevant. Your enemy wants your energy. They want to distract you. They want you stuck, obsessed with payback, lost in the same bitterness that controls them. But you're different now. You've tasted the strength that comes from letting go. You've discovered the clarity that silence brings. And you've realized something most never understand. You don't destroy your enemy by reacting. You destroy them by succeeding in ways they never imagined you could. Growth isn't loud. It's steady. It's committed. It's the daily grind of becoming stronger, smarter, calmer. Every time you rise above pettiness, you win. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, you win. Every time you build instead of break, you win. Because destruction is easy. Anybody can burn things down. But not everyone has the patience to build something unshakable. And when you're building something real, your vision, your character, your peace, you stop entertaining people who live for the short game. You stop explaining, you stop reacting, you move with purpose. And let your progress speak the loudest. There is a silence that screams power, a calm that breaks chains, a focus so sharp, it cuts through every distraction they throw at you. That's the space you enter when you no longer need validation. When your identity is no longer attached to their opinion, that's the moment they lose all influence. Because when you stop caring what they say, they can no longer control what you feel. And once your emotions are no longer in their hands, the war is already over. You've won. Quietly. Completely. Success is not about applause. It's about peace. It's about walking through life with your head high, your heart clear, and your future unfolding without dragging your past behind you. That kind of success can't be faked. It can't be borrowed. And it definitely can't be destroyed by someone too weak to build it themselves. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them watch. Because every second you waste on them is a second stolen from your future. You weren't built to battle shadows. You were built to walk in light. Your legacy is your answer, not your words, not your rage, not your revenge. The life you build in silence becomes the reminder that you didn't just survive, you evolved. You didn't just walk away, you leveled up. And nothing will haunt your enemies more than the version of you they no longer have access to. Because this version doesn't just ignore them, it outgrows them entirely. Keep building, keep rising, keep moving like someone who's already free. Because when you do that, you don't just leave your enemies behind, you make them irrelevant. And that's the ultimate victory. When you no longer need to be liked, you unlock a level of power most people never touch. Because the moment you stop bending to fit into places that shrink you, the enemy loses their weapon. They can't use rejection to control you. They can't use silence to punish you. They can't use exclusion to wound you. You rise beyond the reach of their tactics. You stop playing the game, and when you stop playing, they stop winning. Your peace becomes your resistance. Your progress becomes your protest. You don't need to argue, you don't need to explain, you just need to rise. Validation is the chain that keeps people small, but the ones who break free from needing it are the ones who lead, who win, who create lives of meaning. Your enemy counted on your need to be accepted. They fed off your fear of being alone. But once you embrace solitude, once you realize your value doesn't drop just because someone else can't see it, you become untouchable. The rejection no longer breaks you. It builds you. It teaches you where not to return, who not to trust, and what never to settle for again. Most people are controlled by the need to belong. But when you stop craving their approval, you reclaim your time, your energy, your voice. You learn to move with self-respect. You stop chasing, you start attracting. You stop shrinking, you start expanding. The silence they gave you becomes the space where you grew. The distance they created becomes the runway where you took off. They didn't block your path, they cleared it. And now they watch from the same place they tried to keep you stuck. Let them call you cold, let them say you changed. That's what happens when you no longer serve their comfort. When you're no longer afraid to be misunderstood. Growth often looks like detachment. Healing often looks like isolation. Power often looks like silence. And that's exactly why they can't recognize you anymore. Because you're no longer built from their approval. You're built from clarity, from purpose, from the kind of inner strength no one can hand you and no one can take away. You don't destroy your enemy by proving you're better. You destroy them by no longer needing to prove anything at all. By walking into rooms without shrinking. By saying no without guilt. By showing up without fear. By knowing who you are so deeply that their opinion feels like background noise. This isn't arrogance. This is freedom. The kind that scares those who only feel powerful when others feel small. You are no longer who they remember. And that's what unsettles them. Not your words, not your actions, but your transformation. You don't need their validation to shine. You've already chosen yourself. And in that decision, you've already won. Because when the enemy can't control how you see yourself, they've already lost the battle they started.